Yes.
Good afternoon, Raquel. How are you?
I'm
How's
well.
everybody doing?
Rukia, did you get my message?
I did, Dr. Juan, I did get your message. I'm going to go start the webinar, and I'm going to ask
My name is Trustee Chris Moyes. It is an honor to be given a few minutes here today to say thank you. But first, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the remains of the 215 Indigenous Métis, Cree, and Haudenosaunee children found in a mass grave outside Kamloops, BC this past week. Every child matters is not just for those who survived, but the ones that were murdered. We have much work to do before healing and reconciliation can begin. To our Indigenous brothers and sisters, we stand shoulder to shoulder with you. We remember. The Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement will be a beacon of hope where students and staff from across the TDSB will seek help, guidance, encouragement, and a safe space when needed. Thank you to my trustee colleagues for their unanimous approval at board for the creation of the center. Thank you to all the staff, past and present, who have worked on this project from the very beginning. Thank you to the Black Student Achievement Community Advisory Committee, past and present members, for their dedication, input, and continued support, which helped make this day come true. Growing up as a student in the Toronto Catholic District School Board, elementary and secondary, I did not see myself reflected in the school's teaching staff or administration. I believed at a young age that's the way it was and would remain. It was not until grade 11 when I had my first Black teacher, I felt valued and encouraged to strive for something more. Our students today at the TDSB will not have to wait until their senior years to feel valued and academically capable. My hope is the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement is not only a place for research, but also a place where students and educators from across the district will come and learn from one another. A place where resources about Black culture are kept and shared. It will be a place that will help us dismantle anti-Black racism over time. This is a historic moment in our city and province, and I am proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
The establishment of a Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement is the culmination of years of unwavering advocacy on the part of Black communities, elders, parents and caregivers, students, and staff at the TDSB. On behalf of the Black Student Achievement Community Advisory Committee, I want to express our sincere gratitude to all of you who played a role in bringing forward the vision of the center and holding the board to account for making it happen. School board policy is only as good as its contribution to improved student outcomes. My hope for the center is that it will bring to action what years of data collection, research, and community voice have told us, which is that the current education system has failed Black students and needs to do better. The Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement should be a site of research and curriculum development and must also function as an affinity space for Black students and caregivers to access culturally relevant and responsive resources, system navigational tools, mental health services, and other much needed supports in taking an integrated approach to bridging the equity gap for Black students. There's so much work to be done, but for now, let's just savor this historic moment. Congratulations, TDSB, on the launch of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement.
As members of the TDSB's African Heritage Month Committee, we have hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. My hope is that we increase student voice for Black students and their families.
My hope is that the center creates spaces where Black students can be themselves. I also hope that the center engages in work that is brave, meaningful, and grounded in truth-telling.
My hopes for the Center of Excellence is to have students have a safe place to where they can go to for help, and they can also have someone to help them achieve their goals in post-secondary.
My hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the Center of Excellence for Black Students Achievement are to create a community of individual and collective sharing that will create stronger bonds to challenge and dismantle individual and systemic oppression, and for greater heights of the reclamation of Black humanhood near and far.
My dream is that the center is a space of healing for Black students, staff, parents, and families. My hope is that the center engages Black communities in leadership and development.
My open dream for the Center of Excellence for Black students is that students would have more voices, both the students and parents and the staff who are working there.
I hope for the alignment of intergenerational voices and leadership, health, and growth as we learn and lead in the greater context of the Toronto District School Board.
We are emcee, and we are delighted to continue collaborating with the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. We are going to talk to you about what emcee means to us in connection to the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement.
A, to inspire to make positive changes.
H, honor the youth's lived experiences.
E, engage, empower, excel in excellence.
N, never give up and let all voices be heard.
E, together we can build our community.
B, bridge the gaps for all.
E, empower the community.
And network with individuals at various points of entry.
The center will honor my lived experience.
Parents and guardians will learn what the system looks like, sounds like, and feels like supporting student success.
emcee is committed to the 21st century movement towards excellence and to mobilize the generations now and those to come.
Collaboratively, we can and we will continue with student
engagement and empowerment in
growth, success stories, and next steps.
In line with the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement, ASHE.
Before you begin, this is one of the interpreters. I'm trying to get the other interpreter to be part of the panelist list. So before you go ahead, can you just make sure that happens?
I'm going to ask the other ASL interpreter to rename themselves along this.
Welcome, fellow students, staff, family, and community members. It is now 5 p.m. My name is Sabrina, and I am in grade 10.
Hello, my name is Nisi, and I'm in grade 11. We would like to welcome you to the launch events of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement.
The Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement is the first of its kind in public education in Canada. It was established with the explicit mandate to dismantle anti-Black racism within the school board and improve the experiences and academic outcomes for self-identifying African, Afro-Caribbean, and Black students.
I'm sure you're all looking forward to tonight's program, which includes a series of wonderful speakers and video contributions from TDSB alumni and current students, and a spoken word performance by Randall Ajay, who was recently appointed Ontario's Poet Laureate. So let's begin.
We will now welcome Superintendent Sank, System Superintendent, Indigenous Education, who will provide the land acknowledgement.
Ani Bojo Tansi. I just want to say welcome everybody this evening as we celebrate the launch of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. As with the tradition, we would like to start with a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to say that we acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Mississaugas, of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat, and we also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples today. We also acknowledge and honor the treaty relationship with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and we also acknowledge that we are in the Dish with One Spoon territory. It is a treaty between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee to share the territory and protect the land. And this treaty is in spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. And by acknowledging the land, we also remind ourselves of our human connection and responsibility to care for the land. And so with that being also on behalf of the Elders Council, celebrating along with you, and also on behalf of them, this is a time to honor and respect the 215 children who were uncovered in a mass grave, and to take a moment of silence to reflect and to pay respect. Thank you very much, Chimigwech, as we together celebrate the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement.
Thank you, Superintendent Singh. Our next speaker is Vice Principal Zuberi, who is also a co-chair of the African Heritage Month Committee. with the TDSB. Over to you, Vice Principal Zuberi, with the library.
At Palau Carnival Arts, we say happiness is an act of resistance. The opening of the Toronto District School Board Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement is indeed something to be happy about. This celebration or launch can be named as an act of resistance in the middle of a triple pandemic. During my discernment of what I would say today, I was reflecting upon our beings. And I heard somewhere along the line that joy and pain stems from the same place. Our mere day-to-day existence is paradoxical. I invite you to take a cleansing breath. Breathe in deeply to find that place of joy and pain, of happiness and sadness. My role is to evoke the spirits of our Black ancestors to be present by pouring libation. Libation is an African ritual. Before I pour the water, I'd like to take a moment to recognize that we are standing on Indigenous land here in Canada, where 215 Tecumseh children bodies were recently found. This, at its very least, led me to reflect and ask, how am I implicit in the continued genocide of Canadian Indigenous peoples? Libation is seen as an African Indigenous rituals, as aforementioned. The pouring of water is much like raising flags, lowering flags, singing anthems, reciting acknowledgements. All of these acts are rituals to help bring us into collective consciousness, which is then supposed to lead us to collective action. I want to summon the Kwanzaa principle of umoja. Let's move in unity with our collective action. I will pour libation to evoke the collective spirit of our Black African ancestors to witness this glorious day of progress for Black students and families, and by extension, all students and their families, all staff and allies at the Toronto District School Board and beyond. I also call upon our ancestors to celebrate their achievements for laying the foundation of this center. The center came about out of their acts of resistance, which made many of us be possible today. Our ancestors have laid the foundation for us all to be excellent. I pour the water today. I am going to use a rainbow cup. I chose to use a rainbow cup to summon the spirit of our Black African, Indigenous, LGBTI2Q, Black ancestors to witness and celebrate and let them know that their resistance and struggle, their harm has not gone unmarked. They can now see us standing tall in Ubuntu, oneness, in love, in celebration today for the center. I now invite all the panelists to please unmute your microphones so that you can call their names. Anytime you're ready, I call Sharona Hall.
Uncle Yuli.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Frank West. Russo.
Ashe.
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 Charlie Roach.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ekua Walcott.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Marcus Garvey.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Harriet Tubman.
Desmond.
Ashe.
Fran Endicott.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Pat Daly.
Ashe.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Principal Zuberry. We would now like to introduce our Interim Director of the TDSB, Karen Faulkner, and Chair of the TDSB, Alexander Brown, who will share some greetings. Over to you, Director Faulkner and Chair Brown.
Thank you so much. I'm going to defer to Chair Brown to go first, and then I will speak.
Thank you so much, Director Faulkner. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the official launch of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. My name is Alexander Brown, and I'm the trustee for Willowdale and the chair of the Toronto District School Board. So this is a great event to be part of. And I want to thank all of our TDSB staff and everyone in the community involved in the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement for inviting me to participate. I also want to extend a huge welcome and thank you to our distinguished guests, performers, and speakers. The TDSB is committed to supporting and celebrating the uniqueness and diversity of all students and staff. Our goal is to provide equitable and inclusive education in safe and welcoming spaces. And that means that everyone in every school, in every community needs to feel welcomed and included in their learning, working, and playing environments. And as we often say, regardless of our backgrounds or personal circumstances, but I also think it's because of our backgrounds and personal circumstances that we welcome and include everyone. Equity and anti-racism and anti-oppression are core priorities in the TDSB. These priorities guide the board's commitment to address anti-Black racism and equity system-wide, including the creation of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. The center is the first of its kind in public education in Canada, and it was approved by the board about a year ago to dismantle anti-Black racism within the school board and to improve both the experiences and outcomes for Black students. The center will also be responsive to the voices of Black communities, families, and individuals who have consistently advocated for deeper systemic change from the TDSB. This work includes supporting Black students to combat racism, navigate through the complaints processes, identify and dismantle barriers to success, and to improve access to appropriate resources, as well as professional development for staff, changes to policies and procedures, meaningful and focused community engagement, and so much more. But this is work that we are all responsible for doing every day in every school, every workplace, and at home. And we can all be proud to support the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement in leading us and engaging us in this work. We quite clearly know that these issues exist in our system, and as leaders in education, it's our role to build awareness, advocate for change, and make it happen for our students, their families, and communities. As a trustee, and especially as the chair of the board, I am very proud of the TDSB for taking action in creating the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement, and of the work that the center will do to help our Black students and their families. On behalf of the board, thank you for your commitment and for all of the work you do. Enjoy the rest of today's launch, and thank you once again for including me. And I will now pass it back over to our director, Karen Faulkner.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Chair Brown. Oh my gosh, the Black and racialized leadership that I see on this screen with me now, I am humbled and honored to be here. I remember listening to a board meeting because we couldn't watch it during the time of pandemic, when the Center for Excellence for Black Student Achievement first got discussed by then Associate Director Colleen Russell Rollins. And the power in her voice as she spoke of the mission and the compelling reason for this center was so profound that she herself spoke of her own experiences as a Black leader in our current Toronto District School Board. And as I look at the multitude of talent before me now, and I recognize all those who are listening, I am deeply humbled to be sharing in this moment. This is a milestone. All of you tonight are witnessing history being made. The center is the first of its kind in public education in this country, and I want to honor all those who came before us here on this screen to make this moment possible, because out of much protest and words of action came this group of people who could build this kind of center so that future students, staff, and families in our board could be recognized, could be advocated for and with, and could be listened to. Since its inception, the center has become a space where the voices of our Black communities are heard and Black students' experiences and outcomes can be significantly improved. From the creation of grad coaches, Black graduation coaches, to offering amazing learning opportunities and experiences, the center will and has already begun to be the place to foster Black student success in the Toronto District School Board. I want to recognize our central principal, Karen Murray, and our Superintendent of Equity, Jackie Spence, without whose leadership there is no way we would be sitting before you now. That does not mean there were many more who were not involved in this, but I know every step of the way, Associate Director Curtis Ennis made it clear the priority here was to make sure the Center of Excellence was properly supported and was allowed to flourish and grow. To Trustee Moyes, to the other trustees in the District School Board, I want to thank you for having the courage to stand up for such a historic moment and for giving us permission as staff to go forth and be courageous in our pronouncement that we will tolerate nothing but the best for our Black communities, nothing but the best for our Black students and families, and most importantly, giving an opportunity for our Black staff and racialized staff to serve these students in ways they know are necessary in order to assure our students of success. It was last year, this month, that the board unanimously approved the funding, because don't make any mistake about it, this was about prioritizing the creation of this Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. It was a concept that may have been the years in making, but in that moment, the funding needed to assure the center of its existence was guaranteed and assured as a priority in our Toronto District School Board. To the trustees for having the courage to do this, I thank you. And I thank you because it is always hard to be the first. It is always hard to lead the way. We know that anti-Black racism is entrenched in many TDSB schools and across TDSB experiences for students, staff, and families. And we know that we must do better. And while there is work continuously to be done to dismantle this within our board, this work is far from complete. There is so much to do, and I know the center will support the continuation of our work and take it in all new directions that we want to go. I want to thank you all again, and I want to thank you particularly as the first racialized Jewish director of this board. I am thanking you for letting me be a part of this moment, because I want to tell you, my Jamaican father who died this year would be so very proud of this moment. And if I could have benefited by this kind of experience when I was a child, I would have been a director much sooner in my life. Thank you to all of you. And I want to say I look forward to hearing and boasting about all the amazing initiatives and programs and how I was allowed to be involved in but a tiny piece of it. Merci beaucoup. Many thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Interim Director Faulkner and Chair Brown. We would now like to welcome Trustee David Smith, who will share his thoughts about the location of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement and the importance of the center within the community. Please go ahead, Trustee Smith.
I'm going to actually direct it back to Sabrina, and Sabrina will introduce Peel District School Board Director Colleen Russell Rollins, and we'll come back to Trustee Smith immediately after. Go ahead, Sabrina.
We would now like to introduce Colleen Russell Rollins, who will set some context about the history of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. Ms. Russell Rollins is the current Director of Education of the Peel District School Board and was absolutely instrumental in moving the motion forward for the development of the center. Over to you, Director Russell Rollins.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. Good afternoon, Chair Brown, Director Faulkner, and the TDSB community. I'm honored to share with you some of the aspirations for the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement when I put forward a recommendation to the Board of Trustees to establish it. These aspirations are rooted in the rights and the lived experiences of Black community members and students, present and in the past. When I reflect back to last June, it was an emotional time for so many of us. I conceived that the center would serve as both a mirror and a window on the education of Black children in the Toronto District School Board, both a mirror and a window. How will the center serve as a mirror, you ask? A mirror reflects what's in front of it, both the beauty and the imperfections, perhaps the serious flaws. The center would mirror for the Board of Trustees, educators, communities, and our students the complex realities they face each and every day. The center will show us examples of Black excellence that are so often erased, untold, or denied. They need to be given light and prominence in a system if we're asserting that we are truly committed to equity and we're truly practicing anti-racism. It would also reflect and document the flaws, the often unseen ways anti-Black racism operates in classways, hallways, and departments. The lived experiences of Black students and staff should be reported through community-informed researchers so we can all be held accountable for the elimination of anti-Black racism and the disproportionate outcomes it creates. The center ideally would serve as a place to call in others to change more quickly than we often get when we're calling it out. Calling in has the potential to reduce the emotional labor, the emotional toll that often goes into calling out activities. Simply put, we can't fix what we can't face, according to James Baldwin. Around this time last year, a student said to me, something that I personally will never forget. He said, "Miss, I refuse to be what my teacher sees when she looks at me." I'm going to repeat that. "I refuse to be what my teacher sees when she looks at me." That profound statement made me motivated to think about the center as a Black affinity space. A Black affinity space is where Black students and staff who hold intersectional identities, who may identify as Black and queer, Black and Muslim, Black women, can challenge the stereotypical representations that surround us each and every day. Where students and staff can develop more accurate ways of expressing their identities within the Toronto District School Board, and also foster a sense of safety, belonging, and yes, resistance. The center would also serve as a window or a vision to the future, where your identity doesn't predict your educational outcome or experience. That's where the center serves as a window to what's possible. As so many of our speakers this evening have said, nowhere else in Canada does an educational space exist within a school board that brings together students, staff, policymakers, co-conspirators, and Black communities to construct together new and innovative approaches for creating a more just and equitable education system that serves not just Black students, but all students. It is my expectation that the center will assist in entrenching anti-racist practices, and there will be a ripple effect of actionable change that positively impacts students. Layla Syed reminds us it's not just about changing how things look, but how things are from the inside out, one staff member, one student, one family, one school at a time. But I would offer you one caution. The center does not absolve any one of us from acting to achieve racial equity each day in the spaces in which we have influence. It does not replace the moral, ethical, and legal responsibilities we each have in upholding the humanity of all children. We all have a role to play. Lastly, the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement demonstrates publicly that the Board of Trustees is intent on listening to Black communities and working closely and taking bold actions to disrupt the status quo. Many of you will know that I support public education, and I think that the establishment of the center shows an investment in ensuring that public education remains relevant to Black communities through action. You're fortunate to have Randall Ajay, Poet Laureate, to share his gifts tonight. I'm going to quote another Poet Laureate, and Randall, I look forward to quoting you in the future. I'd like to share a quote from The Hill We Climb by American Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman. The part of her poem I will recite, with a change to 2 words, eloquently captures the opportunity and the importance of this moment in launching the center. Ms. Gorman writes, "We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. A body and heart that are bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy, and change becomes our children's birthright. There is no doubt in my mind that our shared ambition for the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement in the Toronto District School Board is that change becomes our children's birthright. I'm incredibly proud of your resilience in developing the center and launching it this evening in the middle of a health pandemic. Congratulations, and as the Tanzanians say, go well.
Thank you, Director Russell Rollins. We would now like to introduce our Associate Director of Equity, Wellbeing, and School Improvement, Associate Director Ennis, who will provide a highlight of the mandates of the Center of Excellence. As Associate Director Ennis is speaking, you will see 3 slides that highlight the mandates. Please go ahead, Associate Director Ennis.
Thank you so much, Nisi. It is so good to be with you this evening. I can only imagine what it would be like if we were all together in one place physically. It would be a party. It would be absolutely great. It is good to see you. I just want to say thanks to Karen Murray and to System Superintendent Jackie Spence for making this a reality. As I stood in the boardroom and shared that we would be launching this in the late spring, you have made it so. Thank you so much. In gratitude. And so I just want to share with you what the mandates are for the center. And so the first part of the mandate, of course, surrounds students. It is to provide support to Black students in the Toronto District School Board to combat racism, to navigate complaint processes, to identify barriers to success, and to access appropriate resources such as scholarships, networking, and mentoring. We also aim to identify and develop and facilitate culturally responsive and relevant healing practices for groups of students. We also want to seek to establish effective mechanisms for monitoring improvement in the achievement of Black students. And we also seek to inform changes to policies and procedures so that all students may benefit from the learning and innovative practices developed by the center. We also closely hold our families and communities, and the mandates there are to support meaningful engagement and advocacy of caregivers for their children in the Toronto District School Board schools and programs, and to improve communication to them about Black student success, system navigation, and complaint processes. And secondly, to engage in strategic community partnerships related to education within the annually identified approved budget for this purpose. We also couldn't do this work without our staff and the entire system supporting us. And so we will use evidence to highlight promising practices and engage in meaningful research on topics relevant to Black students that are then integrated across schools and at the system level within the TDSB. We will create professional learning in anti-Black racism and collaborate with other staff in facilitating learning in decolonization, anti-racism, anti-oppression, and human rights, recognizing the similarities and intersections of various forms of oppression. And lastly, we seek to provide annual accountability reports and recommendations to the Board of Trustees and to our staff. I trust that you will join me in making these mandates a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Associate Director Ennis. We would now like to share a trailer of a video compiled by Esquire Johnson, highlighting the experiences, hopes, and aspirations of a former and current TDSB students. A more fulsome version of the video will be shared at a later date and put on the center's formal website. We would like to thank all the individuals who contributed to the development of this video. We could not have done it without you.
For me, the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievements is about building awareness about Black communities.
Prior Prior to being in this role, I worked in the equity department, so Central, for 6 years. And part of the work that I was doing was actually with Black student achievement. So I saw the data. The board had to respond somehow. And there's been advocacy with community. It came out of community advocacy and educator advocacy and student advocacy, saying that they need a space to be able, they want to learn about information of people that look like them and their families and so forth.
As Black students, we're so often told and made to feel as though we're not enough, whether it be from our peers or even from our teachers. And even the way society highlights Black people, specifically Black youth, is belittling. You know, we're perceived as rowdy, unintelligent, improper. And after being told these things all of your life, you start to believe them. I think that having a Center of Excellence geared specifically towards Black, African, Afro-Caribbean students will have a huge positive impact on how Black students view themselves. You know, even the words Black and excellence together in a sentence gives me a sense of accomplishment. Just like a warm feeling in my heart, you know? My hope is that a center like this is able to give Black students a platform to be themselves, to go against the social constructs that have been placed against them, and to achieve greatness, to prove what we already know to be true, that Black students are capable, that we are worth it.
Throughout my years in school, I felt as though many people in the media who didn't share the same skin color as me have won almost everything and got more attention than the people who do. Having a Center of Excellence being focused on Black individuals made me really happy and would have given my younger self the sense of relief that Black people are successful and Black people can reach their goals. I hope that the Black student in my younger grades get to see Black people in the lessons they learned in order to gain an understanding of our history.
I feel like growing up, I felt that other skins and races other than Black race had a much better advantage in the education system. This impacted my learning because I felt that I couldn't make something out of my education. So now to see that the TDSB is making an effort to make a difference for thousands of students around the board is amazing. I can see success in action, and I know this will influence my future. I would like to see the center be a place where my peers and I can connect to talk about our mental health and focus on our self-esteem. I'm really excited about the potential of what the center can offer for a young Black girl who is thinking about the next step in her future.
The TDSB is the largest school board in all of Canada, representing 250,000 pupils who are ready to learn and take on the world every single day. Now, the thing about public education is, though the experience is marketed as universal and the same across jurisdiction, the individual experience themselves is largely different from peer to peer, and in particular, largely different for our students who identify as Black. The Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement, this wonderful initiative being put together by the TDSB, is going to help level the playing field. Now, what that means for students is the ability to see themselves as a leader in whatever way, shape, or form or career they choose to pursue. For the Toronto District School Board, the city, and by extension the world, this is an opportunity to help incubate ideas, new ways of thinking, perspectives, and a toolkit required to get those perspectives out that have the ability to impact the 37 million people who live in this country. And for someone like me that has achieved some success in a very relatively short period of time, I have the ability to not look like a statistical anomaly and just a data point in something that should be everyday Black achievement.
My name is Flings Owusu Ejapong. I graduated from Downsview Secondary School in 2006. I'm very excited to hear about the Center of Excellence opening up, and it is my hope that the center is able to bridge the achievement and graduation gap for all Black students. I hope that it allows the students to see different opportunities available to them outside of the immediate circumstances. One of the biggest things that I have learned so far is that networking is important. Connecting to people whose goals align with yours, and even those whose goals may not necessarily align with yours, can make a big impact on the direction of your life. I've seen it firsthand, whether it's been job opportunities or even as an Olympic track athlete getting into track meets. Who you know matters. Your natural talents can take you far, but your network can catapult you into a whole new world of possibilities. These are the type of resources that I hope the center is able to provide. I had a lot of guidance and support along the way, and I truly hope that this center will be a place where these students can come and get the same type of help.
The center, I believe, is an opportunity to really redefine what success looks like for Black students. When we often think about Black students, there are not many times I've heard about Black students and success in the same sentence. And I think this is an opportunity for students to really be able to understand how to navigate a system that wasn't necessarily designed for them to succeed. I remember getting in trouble and my mom didn't have the support, didn't have the resources to really be able to advocate for her son who was getting in trouble in the system. And I think this is a great opportunity to help families to do so. I think it also changes the course of students and their journey towards post-secondary or towards just creating a better life for themselves after they leave the education system. What I aspire and hope to see the center really do is to create a space for young people to feel understood, to be seen and to be heard, to really change the narrative, to really take a moment to understand what does it mean to be Black, what does it mean to be us, and what does it mean to be able to learn from where our ancestors and what they've created for us to be here in this moment in time. When I think about the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement, I really think about an opportunity that allows students to leave an education system knowing more about who they are and more about where they're headed. I'm excited to see where this opportunity leads.
I am from Scarborough, right where the center is. I am just about 1 kilometer or 2 away. I lived there for about 20 some odd years in Toronto Community Housing that's just around the corner at a place called Gilder. I was clearing up my mom's house some weeks ago and I found an old report card. The report card that I found was one that had me in grade 4. And in grade 4, when I was going to Glen Ravine, it showed that I had failed almost every single course. And yet someone will say to yourself, well, how did you fail every course, but yet you're still a judge now? It took me some time to get to the point to realize that I'm worth it. That even though where I live or what I do or what my grades are, it doesn't matter. I'm still worth it. And so I'm hoping that the Center of Excellence will go and they will find other Donald McLeods, other women, other young girls, other people just like me who may not look on the paper like they are worth it, but we know that we are worthy. And after it's all said and done, your excellence will be realized. Always remember, excellence without excuses.
Before I turn it over to one of the student MCs, you'll notice on the screen at the bottom, hashtag capital letters TDSB CEBSA for those that are tweeting. And please follow us as we continue to increase and promote the center at TDSB lowercase _ CEBSA. I'm going to turn it over to the student MCs.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite all our panelists to turn their cameras on. During this segment of our event, we will participate in a panel conversation about the key mandates of the Center of Excellence for Black students. Moderating this conversation is Aitar Sadr. Ms. Sadr is a storyteller, children's author, and managing director of a different book list cultural center, the People's Residence. A different book list has been a longtime partner with the TDSB, providing culturally relevant and responsive resources and learning opportunities for students across the system. Over to you, Ms. Sutter, to introduce our panelists and begin the conversation.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, MC Nisi, for your introduction. Also want to thank your co-MC, Sabrina, for navigating us through this evening. And I am just as equally—
Sorry to interrupt you. This is the interpreter. We're having some technical difficulties. If you wouldn't mind starting again so we can make sure that this event is accessible. Thank you.
Not at all. We are in the village and the village is good. So we can rewind and come again. And one of the great things about the conversation this evening that I've heard so far, that everyone has talked about going forward. And I'm just taking this quick opportunity to congratulate the leadership of the Toronto District School Board, Superintendent Jacqueline Spence, and to Karen Murray also too for their incredible leadership, courage, perseverance, and love in making the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement not only a milestone, but a reality. And I hope wherever you are, in the comfort of your homes, after 2, you can all scream at the top of your voice and just let some of that energy out. Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, and let's all scream it out because it's a beautiful moment. And as Curtis said, it would have been a party. So here's a little element of the party. 1, 2. Center of Excellence for Black worldwide. Yes! We coming with great. I am in big company this evening. I have an incredible panel and panelists in front of me. When I look at their names, Dr. Nicole Westburn, when I look at the names, Dr. Carl James, Dr. Nana Day, and that Dr. Joki Wan, I think this is CNN, Canadian National News Now. And it so is fitting that we have some of our mighty scholars coming out of the African Canadian community to be here with us this evening as we celebrate. Nothing bad can happen to any of us this evening because we've got some serious doctors in the house. And I know if something takes me on, Dr. Joki Wan, she's going to probably talk to me about healing and she's going to fix it. And then I know Dr. Nana Day, he's going to go and get me some indigenous knowledge just to help the situation. And I know at the same time, Nicole will be talking to all parts of my body so that they would be in alignment and with their diversity and all that good stuff. And I know that Dr. Carl James will be going to get some other scholars so that they could document this experience that is taking place today. But let me introduce the panel. Dr. Joki Wan, Professor of Social Justice Education, researcher and educational leader. She's currently serving as chair in the Department of Social Justice Education at Moyes, University of Toronto. And you can clap in the comfort of her home as I introduce our great panelists. Dr. Nana Day, Professor of Social Justice Education and Director of the Center for Integrative Anti-Racism Studies at Moyes, University of Toronto. Dr. Nicole Westburn, CEO of NWB Consultant, professional development consultant with a focus on educational equity issues and dismantling anti-Black racism in education. And of course, Dr. Carl James, professor and the Jean Augustine Chair in Education, Community and Diaspora in the Faculty of Education at York University. So these are our great panelists, and a round of applause again for them. Thank you, audience, you're doing just great. So to get us started, and you know, one of the things that when we talk about the Center of Black Student Achievement and Excellence and anti-Black racism, we always got to start with a little bit of humanity, because the first thing that the world sees is us. Yeah. So I just want to ask all of you quickly, what do you do for fun so that the young people on this call watching you and listening to you think, they're academics and scholars, but boy, do they have balance in life. So I'm going to go with you, Nicole. What is something simple that you do for fun?
Okay, trash TV. I have an addiction to TLC late at night when I can't sleep and I can't read anymore. So I like 90 Day Fiance. That's it.
Okay, very cool. Joki, what about you?
I like listening to calypso, dancing, and being myself, and making, those nice moves of calypso dancing.
Yes, all of these things we all experience in the center. Dr. Carl James, what is something you do for fun?
Midnight TV watching, but also I do like planting, and today I did it actually in the middle of the day. I went out and was planting some plants or hostas that I got on the weekend.
Beautiful. Wherever is green and we see green, we grow. Excellent. And Dr. Nana Day, what do you do for fun?
Well, I'm a soccer fan, right? Unfortunately, COVID-19 has stuck us all in the room. So I like watching TV too. And my favorite personalities are Don Lemon of CNN and then Joy Reid of MSNBC.
All right. Okay. So we watch television, we are physical, we love music, and we dance. But here we are today in this incredible opportunity, Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. I'm going to be asking you a number of questions based on your areas of expertise and some of the highlights of today. So to get us all started, and this is a general question to all the panelists, how are you feeling today about this launch of the Center of Excellence? And what do you envision? What will it look like? What do you imagine will take place in this incredible milestone that we've created? And because you're professors and you stand in front of classes, I'm so happy that I'm the professor right now, so I can just call on you. So I'm going to go in this order, and I'm going to ask Carl. Carl, what's your thoughts on this?
I'm very, very excited about this, privileged to have been part of this. And of course, it is quite a journey to get here. And I'm quite excited about the possibilities that this center opens up. And of course, when Mr. Innes talks about the different programs and expectations and the objectives, therefore you can think that this center is really going to do a lot of work. And we have lots of expectations for it. And so I'm very hopeful about it.
Brilliant. Nicole.
Yes, I mean, very, very exciting. Congratulations to everyone who's been at the ground and lifting this up. And it's just always, I always am honored to be invited to, I say, as long as TDSB keeps inviting me, I'll keep showing up. But always honored to be a part of this really important work. And I mean, we know that Black excellence has existed and continues to exist. And the fact now that there's this center that's going to highlight that and it's going to help us take these next steps that we know are so necessary, I think is just critically important. And, I can't help but think, I was just going to say, as we look at this idea of Black excellence, many of us know that today also marks a 100-year anniversary in terms of the Tulsa Race Massacre, right? It was 100 years ago today, right? June 1st, 1921. And we know for many people that may not be aware that that was an attack on a thriving Black community, people, families, homes. But Greenwood was also known as Black Wall Street, right? We were one of the prominent, thriving, self-sufficient communities, right? We had our own everything, bankers, clothing manufacturers, teachers, doctors, lawyers, farmers. There were hotels, cleaners, theaters, barbershops, salons, libraries, drugstore, you name it, we were doing it. And I have this quote from this author, Josie Pickens. She wrote an article in Ebony magazine in 2013, and she talked about Greenwood, and she said it was, quote, modern, majestic, sophisticated, and unapologetically Black. And I said, that is my vision for what this center can be.
Thank you. Joki?
For me, it's I'm full of excitement. It's a great day for finally to be acknowledged And it's a congratulations to all the people who work behind the scene. And to remember, no matter how long the night, dawn will come. A dawn has come. And we need to raise our glasses and congratulate each one of you for the work you have done. Where our ancestors are, they are saying hallelujah for what the children have done. Congratulations to everyone.
Dr. Nana?
Yeah, by the way, thanks, Nicole, for bringing up Tulsa Massacre. It's very interesting we're having this time coinciding with that event. Right? But to me, it's time for possibilities. I see the center in terms of possibilities, and the initiative is long overdue. It's long overdue, and I agree with my other panelists. I think we need to acknowledge the hard work that has made this possible. I think to me, this calls for a reset. So it's a movement for Black reset, where it's like Black programming is on board at the moment. But as we also know, right, it's easy to set goals and objectives. It's another thing achieving them. And that means then we must have the commitment, particularly from the board, the commitment to ensure that this is successful. Right? Because for far too long, Black educational excellence has been undersold. It has been undersold. And I think it's about time, right? At a time when there are many people out there who are not talking about white grievance. And in that process, they forget about the Black pain and the injury, right? We need to have that movement to reflect, buy into the movement and the times, but also be mindful that as we move forward, there are people who also will push us back, right? And we must be prepared to resist and ensure that this becomes a success for our communities.
Thank you for all of those remarks. And I'm noted that we have 679 people that are on. So Dr. Nana Day, that suggests that there is a movement that we're moving forward with. So we are in good company and big company at this time. And I'm going to now go to you, Carl. How different is this center? Over the years, we've had all kinds of conversations about centers, we being centered, all of those discussions. How did this particular center come about? And what makes this center different? And what are some of the possibilities that Dr. Day alluded to that you see going forward with this institution?
I think here of the historical context, where since the 1970s, we've been having data about what's been happening to Black youth in the Toronto School Board then. And we've always noted what's going on, but the data has constantly shown that in the area of achievement, performance, suspensions, dropout, and push out, as they write, Black students have not been doing very well. And of course, the community has been said so many times this afternoon, and the community has always advocated for work to be done to address the situation of Black students. And the board has responded in many ways, but those responses have not been sufficient. Yes, they've introduced programs for Black students in which we were hoping that, yes, it would change the trajectory of these students, but they haven't been able to do so. What we've always wanted is structural changes, institutional changes, not just simply these programs that are going to be reduced to just simply classroom or just get a teacher to do this work. So it has been, so it's very encouraging to move in that direction. And in terms of the programs we have had the Afrocentric programs, like the early Afrocentric school, and then we have the high school education program. But again, these were not sufficient in terms of raising the situation of Black students. And then we had what we call the task force on equity. And that task force was supposed to have looked at how we can look at the Toronto District School Board and do some work in order to change the trajectory and become more equitable in terms of responding to students' need. And of course, Black students in particular, Indigenous students, and other things. And I remember actually sitting in this meeting about that task force with administrators and principals, administrators of the board, discussing what could we do differently? Because after all, it just can't be, here's the program, here's the teacher, here's the curriculum. There has to be some structural changes. And so that discussion, and in that group, the idea is, let's have a center. And so it was through those recommendations that we have seen the center be in place. And of course, I should tell you, I was part of the task force, and of course, that ever so often that recommendation came off of that which was supposed to go forward. However, go through, again, advocacy work of the community. We now have the Center of Excellence for Black students, which means that that advocacy work has paid off. And right now, we need to see what we're going to put in place. The commitment from the board, the commitment of the trustees, which we must commend, and the commitment of the leadership of the board, which we must commend, of course, extremely vital if we're going to go more than just simply have a center of excellence, but have a center that is responsive to the needs of Black students. That's going to show us that Black students can graduate and go to university, graduate and go to a job that they want because they have planned, and that the education that they've received provided them the foundation to go where they want to go. And yes, and I see the centers not only speaking to Black students, but I also see the center speaking to the entire board through the research that comes out of it, through the pedagogical work that comes from it, and through other kinds of activities that the board will produce for our communities. So absolutely central and key when we think of the center. It's going to be pivotal. And by the way, one other point. You know, Toronto District School Board has always been setting an agenda. For example, it's one of the only school board that I know that's been feeding us for the length of time it has been feeding us about data with regard to the school and what's going on. And we have to also commend the parents and students of the board, because they fill out these census forms, and we have to praise them for doing so, because out of those census forms come this kinds of work. So the Toronto board has now set the stage that yes, we're doing something different in order to be able to respond to the situation of Black students. And so I'm hoping that other boards will follow the lead here that Toronto District School Board is setting. So again, we have to compliment the Toronto District School Board leadership for having the foresight to be able to do this. You're smiling a lot, Ida.
I am smiling a lot because I'm also thinking about the word different. And as we go forward again, you know, we have possibilities, we have challenges. You're people that have been in the trenches and you're still at it. So I also want to ask, what makes you resilient to face these ongoing challenges and roadblocks that are put in our way all the time? So that's why I'm smiling. I'm smiling that you're getting excited and you're amping up. And I'm thinking to myself, but here is someone who has been in trenches and so many no's, so many recommendations not implemented. So we know that this is a different time, but what would you say to people who can probably get wear down? How do you amp up and how do you stay resilient in this journey?
You know, Karen Murray, and we have to compliment her, has hired a group of people to be working with the center. And I know some of them, and I think I'm very optimistic that this is going to produce some results. And this afternoon, before coming here, I got a call from Sam Tetler, who called today to say about I'm going to be talking, and so I raised those names as well, because what it says is there's a continuation here. There are other people who are going to be ready to take up the kinds of work that we're doing, to do the necessary research, and not only do the research, but implement what these research findings demonstrate to be able to change the trajectory of Black students. So you have to live with hope and resilience, but at the same time, I also am terrified when we just see these resilience as only training individuals to get curriculum without doing systemic changes. So when I see things that speaks to things that speak to systemic changes, yes, I'm feeling hopeful.
Yeah, okay. And also to what I'm enjoying too as we are continuing this discussion is that we keep making reference to students, to community, because they are the center of all of this. And it is all about the student voice and the work of students. I'm now going to go to Nicole. Nicole. In what ways do you see the center supporting or leading professional learning to ensure Black excellence or Black leadership, if you will?
Okay, you told me I couldn't talk for my full 7 minutes yet, so I'm going to just throw out a few ideas that I was thinking about. So one of the things that I know, having worked with lots of educators in TDSB over the years and lots of excellent Black teachers and Black administrators, is we have to think about what can we learn from what they are doing every day. Right? There is excellence there, and there has been excellence there for decades. And I don't think that we get to highlight that enough. So I would like to see the center play a role in making sure to highlight that work. What are those theories, the philosophies, lived experiences, free and hard taught lessons that they bring to their work every day that they're sharing? They help Black students see themselves in positive and affirming ways. They teach knowing the genius that lies within. They create space for student voice. They engage students in things in community. They help students navigate anti-Black racism they face in schools as well as the larger world. I've seen teachers who support personal and collective agency amongst the students and remind students of their greatness and future potential. They teach students also to be critical of these structures that we talk about in this world, these structures we know that exist that would attempt to deter and dissuade them. And they provide texts that are affirming and enabling and allow the students to navigate their own worlds, see themselves, and think about what's next for them. And it's not just a February thing, right? This is what they do all the time. And so I think about how do we create these spaces where these educators can be of support to other educators to help them to understand how to collaborate, do this work, build relationship with and learn from African, Black, and Caribbean communities, families, caregivers, and students. And they pull from, what are the things they're pulling from? What helps them to take those next steps, to have those understandings? What is the transformative and critical pedagogy they use? What are the Afrocentric principles they embody? How can they make them real every day? So I'd love to see the center be a place where we could think about compensating these educators to do this. I saw there was money somewhere in one of those lines. And this idea of each one teach one, right? How do we continue to build our capacity together and try things together and come back and be in conversation about it, have critical friend groups and engage in trying to do some of this work on the ground in schooling spaces. Secondly, I wanted to add, I think as we're thinking about that collective capacity and knowledge, I think we really also have to take a both and approach. How are we thinking about honoring local community educators and parents as partners who might not work in schools formally, but we know are the first teachers and also create spaces for education? I think Jamia had mentioned something about multi-generational. How do we think about partnerships that are multi-generational with people with expertise across even different disciplines, right? When we're thinking about education, what can we learn from people who work in education in different ways, in different spaces? And I think to create that kind of think tank, a place where people can come together and we can, strive and struggle together, I think would be a really great place for the center. And that to me is opportunity for professional learning. And last but not least, to add to what was just mentioned when Dr. James was talking about the research, I think to think about who are the cutting edge researchers and scholars, thinkers out there right now in terms of what's happening to Black students and in education. Who are we reading? Who are we in conversation about? And as much as we have research on the shoulders we stand on, how can we continue to explore what's new? What we might continue to build upon, what we might continue to learn, and push ourselves maybe into places we haven't gone, that deals with some of the things maybe we haven't dealt with, but to be collaborative and community-based and just think about what are the possibilities that we haven't tried. I see the center and the professional learning as a place to explore possibilities. So I'll stop with that.
Okay. All right. All the time that you were speaking, I was thinking too at the same time that education can be very competitive. There's that element of competition that enters into things. There's an element of sometimes not asking for help because it seems as a sign of weakness. How do we wrestle with some of these things? I know that you are facilitator who is very much in demand, and you do countless workshops. But how do we wrestle with these two things, that spirit of competitiveness with the center?
I think we really have to break that down to why do we do education in that way, right? And if we think about, even if we talk about characteristics of white supremacy culture, and we think about individualism versus communal or collaborative, then it's highlighted for us. And I think we have to think about, how do we do this differently? That's how it's been done, and where has it gotten us, right? And we've got to go back to what we know is something that can work for us, how we've come together in community before as African peoples in different places and spaces to do work together for what we need to do. So I think it is about dismantling some of the ways in which we think about how education is supposed to work, how we've been socialized to think that, how we've been taught it's, individuals. I mean, if we look at it, how we do school, individual students get individual grades. We're not having classroom conferences to talk about how's our whole class doing. That would be a phenomenal new thing when we think about how do we collaborate and build a learning community. How is our class doing? Not how individuals are doing, right? But we do all of this very individually, very Eurocentrically rooted. And I think we need to, it's a lot of unpacking, but I think that's one piece of it. We have to think about who does it serve? Who does it serve to stay in that individual lane, right? And it's not serving our students, it's not serving our communities. So anyway, that's just some thoughts on that.
Okay. You're on fire. Dr. Nana Day, in terms of the center, what are possible areas of research and study that can be focused to bring attention to contemporary challenges of Black excellence?
We do everything.
Great.
Yeah. To me, the center is like a community, right? And in the community, it's as good as we collectively work to make it, right? And this means then that we have to see how we're going to engage the history of our community, our knowledge system, and bring it into the present, and then be able to think about the future, right? The question you're asking is about how this center is able to come to terms with the question of Black educational futurity, right? And so I'm going to highlight about 8 things, a couple of which I think also Nicole just mentioned. One is the whole issue of seeing the center as a hub, right? As a hub that brings together scholarly research and community work. So it engages the different partners that we have in our community. Because we do have a number of associations in our community that are doing this work. OPBC, AHEN, Canadian Alliance of Black Education, and so, but we need to create a coordinating link where this work, right, is housed, right, to make an impact that it should make, right? Secondly, one of the things about COVID-19, right, is that we have reacted to it. And I think it's very, very important as we're concerned, given the lessons of COVID-19, that this center becomes a place where we are able not going to be reactive, but actually be ahead in terms of working with the knowledges and the lessons from COVID-19. It's very, very important, right? So what are the lessons that we've learned from learning online, remote learning? And how do we think through new modalities of teaching, educating our learners, right? So that we are not reactive to that, right? Because we can't go back to any normal. That's not a normal that we all want to go back to, right? We have to think for it, right? And because the issues confronting our communities too also are very, very complex. That leads to the third point, and that to me is to talk about the complexities that we have in our communities. In the plural, right? We are not just about African Canadian, we are African from the continent, we have Blacks from the Latinx, right? So to talk about those nuances and complexities. And that also means engaging some of the questions which have to do with, for example, Black queer, Black transgender, right? How do we take up issues that are going to be issues that reflect the diversity that we have in our community? And so this also becomes very, very important because it leads to the question of how we disaggregate whatever research and the evidence that we have to affect the different members or the constituent groups of our communities. The fourth one, which before talked about, is the question of mentorship. The question of mentorship. How do we mentor ourselves, right? I need to be mentored just as I will mentor my students. Mentorship is a two-way, and our community is about mentorship. so that we are there for each other, holding each other's back, right? And that is something that I want the center to be focusing on, right? How do we, given all what is happening to us in society, then we get into the question of, you know, I heard people speak about the center, they talk about anti-Black racism, right? And the connections with white supremacy. I mean, we do have a number of work research that is done in that, right? But can we also look at work that Blake, for example, talks about trauma-free Blackness, right? Which is to say, how do we pay attention to Black life as joy, as celebration, not just the pain and the suffering, right? But also to be able to talk about Black life, which engages us to, we understand it not filtered through the lens of racism or colonial violence, right? So questions about, and I think this is where people like, people will say Afro-pessimism and Afrofuturity meet, right? Because it's about how we think through the future. Then also the question of Black indigenous relationalities, right? We have to think of ways that, look, we can't talk about Black education, which is about liberation, without talking about indigenous people's struggles for self-determination. And how does this center link the question of Black and indigenous relationalities in our work? I think becomes also very, very important. And then the last but one point, right, it's about question of African elders. I wanted to see how we bring African elders into our school system to make a difference, the way indigenous communities are able to, because we do have African elders who have a large body of knowledge, wisdom, that can be very, very useful to the education of our youth. And then finally, some of you may know, because I'm very, very big on this, is a question of African indigeneity. We don't talk about our African indigeneity. As African peoples, we don't have any indigeneity. We do. The world did not begin with 1492, right? Blackness is not just after 1492. We have to go back. What does it mean to talk about Blackness that engages Africanness, right? That takes us back. Colonialism, as many have said, is not our only story. Enslavement is not our only story. We have to go back to our knowledge systems. What are our knowledge systems? Our knowledge systems are about relationality, sharing, mutual interdependence, community, those things that need to be taught to our students because they are very, very important. And these are teachings that are embedded in Afrocentric philosophies. Some of us are afraid even to mention the word Afrocentricity because we have been cowered away from it, right? But these are knowledge systems that we need to engage. I think to me, I want to see this center front and center in calling Afrocentric teachings to bear in the education of our children.
I tell you, you guys are on fire. I mean, when the story is told, it's going to be said. On June the 1st, we had this panel here, and everybody was on fire. Thank you, Nana Day, for your remarks. And while you were speaking, I was thinking all the time, too, of the students that travel with you from Toronto to your homeland in Ghana. Yeah. And I was thinking about what impact and what space, too, is created with those trips in connection to with the Center of Excellence. Do you want to speak on that and to reference that?
That's a very good, it's a question of the rootedness and the spiritual anchorage that our learners need to have, right? It's that we have been derooted and we need to root our learners. And part of rooting our learners is to root them in African culture, traditions. It doesn't mean everything about African culture and tradition is what? Good. I think we have to be critical about it. But at the same time, we cannot remove that from the way we teach, the way we talk about our learners. So to ground them, because they are rooted. They have an anchor, and we need to ground them so that they can walk with their shoulders high. They can be proud of who they are, and nobody can tell them that they are worthless, that their humanity is valued, is respected, and they can go toe-to-toe with everybody when it comes to the question of knowledge, who they are, and knowing oneself, right? That's the thing, right? Stacey Abraham recently said, you cannot be what you cannot see, right? And we need to see how we basically prepare our learners in a way that affirms their identity, their sense of self, their culture, their histories, just as we interrogate these aspects of their lives.
Well, the wonderful thing about the pandemics, what that has done to that's how the love, freedom of language. We can say racism and nobody thinks we're cursing. We can say immigration. We can say white people. Oh my gosh, we can say all those things now and not think like, oh my God, my bad. Can't say that. But it's important that the point that I'm making for the students who are listening on the call in the community, that sometimes when we have to speak, and people talk about speaking truth to power, we're just speaking about what is truthful in the world, the realities that we face. And
and some of us have been saying that all these years.
Address that. So here is a space that is going to be created, a safe space that is created, where we are not just having conversation, but we are having a discussion about who we are, and we can freely, without numerous preambles, speak truthfully so that we can exchange ideas. So we definitely are on fire. Woohoo! I am now going to go to Dr. Joki. How might the center facilitate the healing of Black students and their families, as it speaks to your area of expertise?
Thank you, Ida, for that question. And I want to say thank you for the performance of libation. That's the beginning of our healing. Thank you for evoking the names of our ancestors. And also I want to say thank you to Karen for inviting us as panelists to have a conversation, because that's where healing starts. So I'll just highlight, because healing is very complex. I'll highlight 4 things: what, why, how, and who. What are we healing from? Why do we need to heal? How should we do it? And who should do it? Before we start healing, we have to ask ourselves, and it has been alluded to, it has been talked about, Professor Day talked about it, Professor Nicole talked about it, Professor James talked about it. What are we healing from? Colonization, the evilness of anti-Black racism, the mental slavery, the degradation of the Black people, their multiple identities that the world has refused to acknowledge. And also, we need to hear from what has been stolen from us, our dignity. We have been belittled, and when the students were talking, you could feel the pain when they were saying they have been belittled. And then when Ms. Loring talked about what one of the students said to her, it hit my heart. We have been treated as less than humans. So how do we need to pay attention to our healing? Why do we need to pay attention to that? Because we need to know where our sickness comes from, where our disease is. We are diseased, we are not at ease. Where the depression has come from. As I said, colonization, the gaps in our education, the masking of Black people's knowledge. And as Professor Day said, there is so much to know that there was existence, there was knowledge before Columbus. 1492 was another world order that was created at that time. We need to know what was before us, before that. So we need to dismantle colonial systems, and in particular, its logic. We need to dismantle the systems of oppression, the structures that have kept us on the margins and wounded our spirit. Our spirit is wounded. And when our spirit is wounded, we cannot function. The spirit of our students have been wounded. Their minds have been fragmented when it's only Eurocentric knowledge that they are given. Their emotions are distraught. Their bodies have been made to be out of balance. The center will enable them to gain their balance, their mental well-being, their physical well-being, and their emotions. How shall we do it? As I said, the center is so crucial for us because that's a lot of healing is going to take place. And as my panelists have said, we need to master our story. before and after Columbus. So we need to bring the two stories together because there is nothing static. We need to bring the successes from the past to the successes that we have had. We need to master our African indigenous governance. People think we are empty. We are not. We need to master the African indigenous governance, our African indigenous economics, our African indigenous education, our African rituals to heal. We need to master the success stories of heroes and sheroes. We can't just start with what happened after 1492. We need to go back, and that center should be full of all kinds of paintings and prints of our heroes and sheroes from the past to the present. And we also need to let's not accept how we have been defined. So we need to heal from that, and always remembering that we are not victims. We are not victims, because when we remain as victims, we continuously are sick. So we need to know we are not victims. So how do we heal? The Center for Excellence will play a huge role in our healing. We'll have elders who will help us to know who we are, our cultural identity. I'll tell you, if we just do what is on the surface, the challenges we are having today will not be healed. We need to go to the root source. We need to treat the root source, the cause of our pain, the cause of our sickness. And then we need to ensure that we have spiritual understanding of the self. And then collectively, we need to have that cultural identity, the multiple cultural identity that we have. Because healing means engaging in self-healing and community healing. Last but not least, we need the second last is, how do we heal? We need to do it by documenting our success stories, our inventions. We know we are inventors. We need to document our talents and showcasing them, all of them. We need to showcase them. We also need to document our struggles, our resistance, our resilience. We need to document that. We need to document the strategies of survival to show it can be done and it will be done. And we'll also need to document strategies of navigation of the terrains of whiteness, because we need to know how to go around the mountain. Trying to go through the hill, through the mountain, we'll never get there. And we need always make sure that the self is at the center. We need to go there without having to censor who we are, because the center will be our space. And that will help us to know who we are in terms of mind, body, the spirit, and so on and so forth. In addition, as Professor Day said, our elders, we need to create special tools, because we just need to be in their bosom. We need to listen to them, and our healing will start. So they will require, I'm hoping there'll be a special space for the elders, because without elders, it will not happen. The healing will not start. I just want to say, we can heal, we shall heal, and we'll regain the balance that has been taken away from us. We are strong people, and that strength of our ancestors and the people to come in the future will create that balance that is so, so necessary. Asante sana, Ashe.
Ashe to you, Dr. Jokiwan, and you two are on fire. And as I sat listening to you, I thought how you have also unpacked and demystified this whole notion of healing, because sometimes when people hear words like healing, we begin to think of white walls and white rooms, and that immediately also makes us very trauma, gets us trauma. But you have painted a holistic picture, if you will, of how we can engage with healing from the physicality of our space and how that impacts on our mental well-being. So thank you too for that visualization in terms of how you see the space, answering the call and responding to our call. If I walk into the space and I am in need of advice today, and there is an elder or someone more senior or anybody, I can freely maybe speak to that person and seek their counsel, as opposed to I have to arrange for the nurse or the doctor or some other practitioner. Not that those things are not important, but I like that the way that you have painted a more holistic approach to thing. What color in your mind are those walls that you were speaking of of that place? How did you visualize that?
In terms of colors,
yes,
we'll have multiple colors, because we are not one thing. We are multiple colors, multiple shades, multiple cultures, multiple identities. So the rooms, I'm hoping we'll have names and colors that will remind us of our past, our present, and our future. It will be something that is not still, and at the same time, it will be colors that can create the stillness, because we'll need that stillness as we try to navigate which room do I need to go. Do I need to go to the data room where I'm going to be documenting? Do I need to go and talk to the elders? Do I need to go and talk to a counselor, a Black counselor? So the colors will be the colors of the rainbow.
Okay, brilliant answer. Last week we did a survey and we asked Black people, when they look at the city of Toronto and they see heritage and they see culture, what does it look like for Black folks? And the number one answer every time was color. So you are in a zone. I want to go to you quickly, though, Carl, back to just go back to the question that I asked you about possibilities. And one of the things that you raised earlier on, that your passion is gardening. Gardening is green, it is growth, and that is also too part of healing. Where do you see that role of nature being aligned to with this vision of the center? We have huge conversations right now in the city about Black farming, land trust, the ownership of things. Where do you see the center also to intersecting with those conversations?
I see significant possibilities in that regard. I also think of, in this discussion, I keep thinking about how do we present to these young people, the 6, 7, 8-year-olds, engage them and build on what they bring to the learning process, build on what they bring to understanding nature and exposing them to nature, build on that. And I think there needs to be that space for what learning we can get, especially when we start thinking about how to engage the environment, the places that we traverse every day, and have them do the work through those visits to spaces that they want to be engaged with. So I see those as I want to turn sometimes the camera on the students with whom we're working and have them tell us sometimes what we need to know about these spaces.
That's exciting. The other day I saw a beekeeper, and the bees came out, and the bee covered the entire beekeeper. And I was just like, oh, shoot, in awe of this. It seems as though the beekeeper was speaking in the language of bees. And there was the queen bee and all of that was going on. And then the bees then went back into their hive. You know, you saw the order, the hierarchy, all of that stuff happening. But I was so impressed with this man who seemed to know the language of nature. And as I stood there and I watched it, and I thought, as a Black person, or if I was a child or anybody, how excited I would be, because this man was like a superhero in that moment. And would that be a tipping point too, that would make young people even more excited about our relationship to nature and with the land?
And how would that young person interpret that? You know, because remember, we're bringing experience and years of experience to that interpretation. And sometimes they would give us new ways of thinking through things. And so we cannot leave them out in that equation, and engage them and invite them to come up with these new ways for us to think through.
Okay. Well, you've also led, Nicole, you're good? You also led us to a great moment. You're also parents, and you're also scholars, you're academics, you spend a lot of time in the business of people. But here we are, we have educators on the call, we have community, we have parents like yourselves, and we have the young people. We live in a takeout society, whether we like it or not. People's lives are complicated. There's so many things to process and to do. And in this moment, we are speaking to people who are in the comfort of their homes. And so by extension, we are speaking into people's hearts. So here we are in this takeout society. And this is the question that I'm going to ask now. I would like for you to think about the parents. I'll go with the parents first. To think about the parents, the community as parents. And what advice, what is that thing, one or two things, so that people can think, okay, I could do that. That's a doable. It's not 10 things. What are two simple things, two doable things that you can suggest to parents who are excited about this moment and thinking, how can I now move the movement forward on the center? What are those two things that you can share to say, if you do this, we good. If we do this, the car is on the road. If we do this, the baby's got legs. What are that instruction or things that you would share with parents around the development of the center, or more importantly, the sustainability of the center? And because this is a tough exam, I'm not going to pick anybody. I'm just going to let you go when the spirit moves you.
Oh. I thought it was directed to Nicole.
Yeah, I thought it was for Nicole.
Yeah. I hope the students are watching this.
No. I wanted to comment on Carl's point. But,
all right.
Yeah, Nicole, go ahead. No.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going
to come back to Carl's point. Yeah.
Okay, well, and I'm not sure, Ita, if I'm answering this question correctly, but I guess I'm thinking about that as a parent and knowing this new center is there and thinking about my child who is in the school system. I'm wanting to know from the school where my child is attending, in what ways are you looking to build the capacity of your staff and connecting to the center and the resources and the learning that's going to be there? So I think as we think about moving forward, in what ways are we as parents in some ways, kind of, holding our local schools accountable for doing this work that we know is so important, making these connections, building this learning. So I'm not sure if I answered that properly, but that's my thinking initially about what you said.
And I would add, how is the school inviting me as a parent to participate in not only the curriculum development, but in terms of how they're deciding on discipline is one of those important points. So there needs to be also, remember, the child has a parent, the child has families, the child has siblings, and therefore parents and all those others can be part of that process, and teachers can benefit tremendously from that.
And I just want to go back to, the question about environment and nature, right? Because I think Carl makes a very excellent point. I think one of the things we need to see how that becomes a central piece of the way we educate, right? I think in some of the work that some of us did on inclusive schooling, right? I think the whole question of climate education, how do you educate, given the seriousness of the climate in the way we face it? But to me, the question that it raises about the environment is the question about caring, right? Nature is about caring. Nature cares for us, and we have to care for nature. And how do you bring that ethic into the way we educate learners today? That they are innate as part of a community. So you care for the other learner just as you care for yourself, rather than this competitive hierarchies and breaking that, right? And this is where the land and earthly teachings, and I think Tetel and non-indigenous communities have done an excellent job than we Africans, right? In terms of how do we teach about the land and the earthly teachings. And when we talk about the land, I mean, indigenous scholars will tell you it's not just about a physical relationship. It's also a spiritual relationship. And I always tell my students, for example, that, okay, you may say, okay, your ancestors left Africa a long time ago. Well, we know in the Middle Passage, right, bodies were thrown overboard. As far as we know, bodies, when you throw them in seas, they swim. So their resting place could even be at Lake Shore. We don't know. So you develop a relationship about the sea, the ocean, wherever you are, because your ancestors could be there, right? And how do you use that as a spiritual, as a psychological, and also as a physical relationship in the way you teach and the way you talk about each other, our connections with nature and ourselves. And the last point about it is also about mothering, right? You can't talk about nature without talking about mothering, right? And the mothering is not just simply a question of looking at it in terms of a particular gender. It's about a teaching about motherness. What does it mean to talk about motherness? Motherness is about caring, right? It's about feeding. It's about ensuring sustainability. It's ensuring survival and resistance. That's what they are, right? And you teach about that to our learners.
But I also think when we sorry.
Can I add something in terms of the conversation? I think keeping, the multiple ways of learning. When you asked us, what do we like doing? I said, calypso and dance. For the African people, they did not just make the movements. The movements that were made were connected to all the parts of the body. And there was a particular way you move to heal a particular organ in the body. So revisiting that. So it's not just looking at the letters and what the letters are saying, it's the interpretation of those movements. And now how it's connected to the community well-being, how it's connected to the community celebrations. So it's not just the whining and the movement of your body. It's actually the synchronicity of the 7 centers. And a lot of people say, oh, these people like to whine and dance. No, it's not that. There is a method. There is the craziness of that dance that speaks to every part of our body. I want to see the center promote that as a form of learning, as an art that should be claimed back, that should be celebrated.
Could I add my point as well? Because I wanted to
That's permission granted.
Thank you. I want to pick up on the point that's been made here about nature, because one of the challenges is we live in the urban environment, and we know the research shows the relationship between nature, learning, etc., etc. So there's a challenge there then that we're going to have to also address with regard to getting young people to also connect to nature and be able to have access to those spaces so that they can bring them into their learning. So how do we do that? And those are some of the challenges we're going to have to think through.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's where the whole question of also elders, how we learn from our elders, because elders have that relationship, a powerful relationship with nature, right, and environments. Can I make another point, or you have your...
You know what? I'm feeling so powerful right now because everybody's got to ask my permission to do something like this. It's such power. Oh my gosh. I don't even know how I can go back to being powerless after this event. I've got 4 of the most recognized scholars out of our community in front of me, and they're asking my permission. Oh my God, this is sweet. This is what the center does for you.
It's trying to be on good behavior.
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. No, I wanted to, because it came up in all our conversations about the question of history, right? And I think for us as a people, right, how we talk about history is very, very important. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is that I want us also, right, as we move forward on this in this center, right, to recognize that there's a long history that brings us to where we are, and never forget that, right? Because I see a disturbing trend of late where people think, oh, of a sudden, these issues are new. They are not. They have been long-standing, and we have had people fight over the years, and we must recognize that history. And so, okay, new questions need to be asked. We must ask new questions. But asking new questions doesn't mean that you take the stand that somehow the old problems have been solved. They have not. They have just morphed into new ways. And this is why we need to recognize the body of work, the body of community activism that is out there, and build on that, right? Because there's so many people now who jump on these things, right, without being rooted in terms of the history. That brings us to where we are, right? Because unless we recognize that history, sometimes the practices we engage in can only be fake. It can only be fake radicalism, right? Because we don't recognize and ground ourselves in that history that has informed us to where we are. Of course, we must ask new questions, but also validate, acknowledge, and legitimize the path that has led us there into that. One importance of recognizing history is how our institutions, right, always want to do what we call this dance, right? They basically appropriate our excellence when it suits them. So they use us as calling cards. And in their path, and Mandela Gray talks about this, in their path to redemption, right? They want to look good. And they want, by looking good, they want to have this here and there to show. And we need to call that up when we see it. And that's what I meant earlier on by saying part of the recognition of history is also being able to acknowledge that more work needs to be done, that we hold people accountable. That is one thing to have a center, is another to ensure that the objectives of the center are actually met. And that means having the commitment from the higher up, not just the lip service, the higher up commitment, backing it up with resources when it's needed, so that we are not set up to fail. I just want to say that.
Thank you for that. I can see that Sabisa, oh my gosh, I just coined that, is going to be in a very great place. And we're going now towards the closing. And I'm also very happy too that you have stated that this is not the first. We're not the first, but this is in a long line of history and historical things of greatness. So here are the students, and they're going to this incredible center. And they're going through the door, and their backpacks are on or whatever it is, and they're going through the door, and they meet you on the street, and they say, we are going to the Center for Excellence for Black Student Achievement. What would be that word or statement that you will say to them to pour into their spirit so that they can be greater? One word or one sentence. What is that thing that you will say to fuel them on their way?
Welcome home.
I would say you'll be rooted.
Keep your options open.
With futurity.
Look how wonderful and easy and effortless that was for you to do that. And it is because you have been in the trenches on this road for a very long time, in the quest for the education of our children and of students of African descent, or Black students, and all students, because we can't have one aspect of the society functioning and not the other. It has been my great privilege to have spent the hour with you. And to all the parents, to all the students, to the community, to all the educators, we also want to thank you and to thank your energy too for informing this conversation. To all those out there who are live streaming, props to you two, enough respect. As I look at the numbers right now, it's 534. I'm going to translate that in giving you all a high five. Good things in the land of storytelling comes in three. And we have come from four corners in different parts of the world together to have this diasporic conversation, if you will. And so in closing, thank you for sharing hope. Thank you for sharing happiness. Thank you for sharing healing. Thank you for reminding us that we will continue to be rooted within this society, because in the words of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, up you mighty race. Thank you. Thank you, Toronto District School Board. And again, to the leadership of the center, Superintendent Jacqueline Spence and Karen Murray in your team. It's been an incredible privilege for all of us to be part of this historic day. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for such a rich conversation. It is clear that
Sabrina, I'm just going to ask that you wait 1 second just to give us enough time to ensure that we have the right spotlight for all of the individuals who are live streaming the conversation as well. All right, please go ahead, Sabrina.
Thank you everyone for such a rich conversation. It is clear that the Center of Excellence is committed to creating opportunities to learn about the experiences, strengths, and perspectives of Black students, their families, and communities, as well as improving the academic outcomes, social and emotional health of us students. We would now like to welcome Trustee David Smith, who will share some of his thoughts about the location of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement and the importance of the center within the community. During the TDSB alumni, you heard Justice McLeod share a bit about the location of the center. We are proud to announce that the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement will be located in Scarborough and housed out of Winston Churchill Collegiate Institute. Please go ahead, Trustee Smith.
Sabrina, I think we may have lost Trustee Smith for just a moment. So what I'm going to ask you to do is move forward, and we're going to come back to Trustee Smith.
No worries.
I just want to say he's having some technical difficulties. So we'll continue to move forward and circle back. Thank you so much.
We would now like to introduce Randall Age. Randall is an author, a spoken word artist, the founder of the community-based organization RISE, and recently appointed Poet Laureate of Ontario. Randall will share a poem written specifically for the Center of Excellence. Welcome, Randall.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I want to take the time to just thank everyone involved in making this possible. My younger self thanks you. And my younger self also really wants to acknowledge the importance of this center and the impact that it'll have on so many. So thank you, Karen. Thank you to all the directors, the superintendents, to our host for tonight, to Rakia Muhammad, and to everyone who was involved in making this possible. But this poem is something that I wrote. And when I wrote this poem, I was really thinking about what does the spirit of excellence mean? And taking this opportunity to really read through some of the missions and mandates and values, I was really inspired and a little jealous that students to come will have this opportunity to access such greatness. And so, this poem is written but still unfinished. And I say that because we still have a long legacy to go of creating something lifelong that will really ensure the future of Black student excellence. The Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement gives me hope and something to believe in. It's been years in the making to reach this historic occasion, a feat achieved through persistence and patience, a moment our ancestors danced in celebration. This monumental moment sets a precedence, a promise to center Black student excellence. This is an innovation to draw out the best in students. This is learning to love the problem to create solutions, fostering the love for learning, a blessed and beautiful movement. The Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement is a huge footprint forward in public education, the very first in our entire nation. They say the journey to 1,000 miles begins with a single step in time, centered towards no Black students getting left behind, because everyone's quest starts with a different destination in mind. Every student's trek to a mountain to their best has a different climb. The center equips and prepares Black students for their prime. We all have our own mountains to climb in life. Everyone's way up has a unique path and height. Over time, I've learned that equality in education is giving every student a pair of shoes, but equity is giving every student a pair of shoes that fit. This step forward can heal the soul of the issue in increments, to combat systematic oppression and racism while identifying barriers to success and creating access to appropriate resources coalesced. This center is a path to help Black students reach their personal excellence, because the sky is not their limit. The wraparound supports can widen their vision, to engage with their ideas and nurture their interests. The center is a space to advocate, foster, and listen, to best understand their needs, so they can stretch further to reach their dreams. This focus on Black student achievement is pivotally needed. Too many times some have fallen through the cracks without reason. Sometimes just for being Black, there are ceilings, or they are left behind for the opportunities they lacked, often carrying a lifelong impact. The center is a space to listen, learn, and act, a space to research how to develop prominent Black leaders, helping parents and caregivers navigate the complex system, an opportunity to center the brilliance and resilience of Black students across our board. This is a shift to work with, not just for. A step towards system change in how we serve students towards success, a collaborative model, because who else knows best but them? The Center of Excellence highlights and focuses on Black student achievement, a commitment to empower the genius of our Black students, to center their plight towards improvement. Here, Black students learn to advocate for themselves and others. Here, Black students are exposed to a world of wonders, a consistent pledge to develop opportunities to determine individual students' dreams and perspectives, where representation is a mirrored reflection, so students can ask questions to those who can relate, a safe space where their challenges are embraced. The Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement is essentially needed. My younger self could have really used this. This is a transformative step, a blueprint, at one point building a future like this was only imagined. And we all know that actions speak louder than words. So may every Black student know their values and worth, and may their excellence truly be unearthed. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time and your ears, and just want to congratulate everyone involved in making this happen. And just excited, really excited to see where things go from here. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Randall. You may now go ahead, Trustee Smith.
Great. Oh my goodness. Today certainly has met me with many difficulties just trying to get on. But this afternoon, I'm very honored and privileged to have listened to the panelists of speakers that presented to us this afternoon. I'm very happy and delighted to hear some of the historical facts and some of the ongoing things of which we continue to work with for the betterment of our students within the Toronto District School Board. Now that we've reached this milestone, I'm happy to tell you that I'm pleased with my colleagues of the Toronto District School Board during the years of the BSAAC and the first Afrocentric school. There are some people I'd certainly like to give thanks to in the Afrocentric, because it's an onward journey and so many of us has done so many things. We can talk about the lip services and the many things that we have gone through, but there's some people who actually I can recognize for their hard work. First, I said thanks to the trustees, but going back into 2013, 14, when we first created Afrocentric School at David and Winston Churchill Collegiate, I want to thank Bill Papaconstantino, the principal there, Manon Gardner, Jim Spiropoulos, and the teachers, Dio, Ione Haywood, Claudine Terrell, Nicola Lois before she became principal. Today is a joyful day for me, myself, in thanking the persons who have really been at the forefront of this. Our past associate director, now director in the Peel District School Board. I want to thank her because her and I sat down on many occasions to talk about this Center of Excellence. And following that, she went on to her new position, and I got to thank Karen Faulkner, the chair. I saw Chris Moyes, who have always been at the forefront of all of this happening. I also would like to thank Jacqueline Spence, Central Science Superintendent, who have spearheaded most of the work that has gone on. And I want to thank Karen Murray, Curtis Ennis for being the AD of this equity file and has done a remarkable job. Now that we are at this crossroad, I'm looking forward to seeing many, many great things happening in terms of capacity building, creating curriculum development to ensure that our students will be looked after. I have to share with you that just recently I had an interview for SOs of this board, and I have to tell you, I've listened carefully to the panelists where they spoke about the language that we could not have used many years ago. I encountered that at those interviews where some of the SOs spoke about not able to use certain words to identify situations. I'm proud and pleased to know that we now can call it what it is. And as we continue to walk along that road and build more and more confidence and competency in how we go about getting this work done, I'm hoping that I can count on each and every one of you who are on this call and beyond to help us get to that place that we are looking forward to. I'm jubilated by this evening, and I want to thank each and every one of you for your input, family, parents, caregivers. And I always say education is the surest way to help children succeed. But, you know, in our ancestors and some of the things that has gone before us, I hope that we can look up and continue to look in the skies or wherever we worship and hope that we can continue to do the great work we are doing. I am so proud, so happy, so joyful. This is a center that is within my ward, and I work very hard to get it here for many reasons. And I'm looking forward to bringing collectively everyone together, collaboratively, to work to make this center be exactly what it is. And I've just heard from Dr. Daya, who says that we got to speak up. We got to make it work. And it's not about lip service. And I can tell you, I strongly don't believe it's lip service, because we start at a point and I can see upward mobility and no constraints development. We continue to work to make this work for our students. And I'm seeing the work. I'm beginning to see real work taking place now. And I can't wait for the doors to widely open to start doing the work our students so long waiting and deserve. So I want to thank you. Have yourself a good evening. And I'm sorry I couldn't get on to get all the things that listen to everything, but I know that the ones that has gone before me, I know they have said great things, and I'm looking forward to being a part of this exercise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. Nisia and I would now like to welcome Systems Superintendent of Equity, Anti-Oppression, and Early Years, Jacqueline Spence, and centrally assigned principal for the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement to close off a remarkable evening. Please go ahead, Ms. Spence and Ms. Murray.
So I am going to start, and then I'm going to pass it over to my my colleague, Karen. I want to say first and foremost that to say my heart is full would be an understatement. It is overflowing right now. I feel just so proud. Many of you may know that for, Karen and myself, this has truly been a labor of love. We are just so thankful that we were able to bring the center to this point where we could launch it virtually and celebrate with all of you. I thank you all so much for taking the time to be with us this evening. I definitely want to say a special thank you, obviously, to Nisi and Sabrina. Thank you for moving us through this agenda with such confidence and grace. Very, very proud of you. We've heard all about the mandate of the center and the possibilities. I think that our esteemed scholars, Dr. George Day, Dr. Carl James, Dr. Joki Wayne, and Dr. Nicole West Burns have highlighted and really, I think, began a path for us to begin this really important work. And I thank each of them so much. I know that we will be calling upon them often for their insights and perspectives. We know that the center, as Trustee Smith has just told us, will be housed in Winston Churchill. We know that that's the space where we had the very first Afrocentric secondary program. So indeed, we have come full circle. And I am so happy and so proud and looking forward to the space that we are going to create as an affinity space for students, staff, and the wider community. Affinity space for all of us in the Black community to come and to share and reflect on, our common purpose. So thank you all so much. I want to hand it over to my small but mighty colleague and friend, Karen Murray.
Thank you, Jackie. And, when you said your heart is full, mine is full too. I think about, when we think affinity spaces, I thought about how we started from community. Mm-hmm. Community voice brought us here, led us here. And, I think about the first time it was said, let's create a center of excellence for Black students. Let's find a space. And as a system, we didn't take it the first time. Mm-hmm. And they came again. And now here we are. So I am absolutely full and proud and excited. Last year at this time, the board made a promise. And and everyone else should know, we made sure that promise was kept. This year could not end, and there was not a center of excellence for Black student achievement. Our space isn't ready yet, so you can't come to our house yet. But when it does happen, you're all invited. We know we had to make it happen because we're already doing the work. We started to do the work months ago, and we couldn't make the year end, and people think the center didn't happen. It did, and we've been working really, really diligently. So first, I would like to say to Interim Director of Field District School Board, Colleen Russell Rollins, when last year, as we were thinking about what was going to be written on that page, know that what's on the page right now is now in reality. So I just want to say that to you and thank you for all that you did to make this happen. I want to thank everyone tonight, and Jackie started, so I'm not going to repeat, but we wouldn't have got here tonight, and this is a special thank you to our entire team, our graduation coaches for Black students, our equity, anti-racism, anti-oppression team. But Rakia, I gotta say thank you to you. You held this down for all of us, and I appreciate you. And I publicly want to let people know behind everything that we do, there's strong people. And this young lady has been a strength for us. So to you, Rikia, and I appreciate you. I want to spend a moment to say to Randell, recently appointed Ontario Poet Laureate, I am so proud. I remember the first time we started working together, and to see where you are right now, I just want students to see, follow your dream, because look where your dream brought you, and continue to build you. And I just appreciate you, and thank you for creating something special just for the center. And people need to know that that was written for us. And I appreciate you for doing that, because that's not something that happens too often. So I just wanted to tell you thank you. Also, we have some Robert Small and Danilo, are artists who have created pieces just for the center. And you'll see that at the end of every video, Robert Small's piece for the center is highlighted and featured, and you'll soon start to see the pieces created by Danilo. These artists created for us. And for me, I believe in the arts, and I believe the arts centers us. And I believe the center is so special that we need to have things that are just ours. And so I want to thank them. And I want to thank Esquire, my wonderful videographer. He took all sorts, everything, all these videos, and look what he's created. And I want you to know that we have a larger video coming with more of our alumni and more of our student voices. So please look out for that. And then of course, the panelists, oh my goodness. No one can say they can get all of you in one space. So I just wanna, say how I appreciate getting all of your thinking tonight. And Aita, oh my gosh, if anybody can keep all these scholars on a topic with such brilliance and ease and fun and excitement, was you. So I just want to thank you for that. And then for everyone else, I want you to understand that when we said we started to work, we started with students, and we've been with students for the last couple of weeks. We're going to head to French students this week, but we've talked to many of our English language students around these mandates and asking them, what can we do for you? What does this look like? And the things they have said tells us that this center is needed in ways that we sometimes can't even imagine. And I hope the little bit from that video showed you one thought about their dreams for us. And I just want you to know that we will continue to build what they tell us and make it a reality. We want them to make us accountable. We're heading to families next. Black families, African, Canadian, identified, African diasporic families, to tell us what they feel we need to do for them. And then we're heading into the community. And then staff, we have not let you out. We're coming to you as well. This space is a hub. It's a space of where we can unpack and learn and build best practices, but most importantly is for all of us. And I just want to thank you, and I appreciate everyone who's here with us today. Those who are on this side and those who are on the other side in the live streaming, we absolutely appreciate you and wishing you well and with blessings, and thank you. And to Tanya for just setting the tone, and Jamia for bringing libations in ways that all of us can intersect. I just want to say thank you to all of you. And for all of our speakers, stating from our chair all the way to our director and associate director and our students. Appreciate all of you. So with that, for those who didn't get to see, we started our session with a video, and we're ending our session with the same video, because we can't do this without community. And these are our TDSB community who has supported us, who anchors us, and will continue to anchor us as we go. So Rakia, whenever you're ready, and everyone else with blessings and thank you, and we're open for business. So we will be around to share. Our new website is coming, and we'll send you links and connections. So whenever you're ready, Rakia.
My name is Trustee Chris Moyes. It is an honor to be given a few minutes here today to say thank you. But first, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the remains of the 215 Indigenous Métis, Cree, and Haudenosaunee children found in a mass grave outside Kamloops, BC this past week. Every child matters is not just for those who survived, but the ones that were murdered. We have much work to do before healing and reconciliation can begin. To our Indigenous brothers and sisters, we stand shoulder to shoulder with you. We remember. The Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement will be a beacon of hope where students and staff from across the TDSB will seek help, guidance, encouragement, and a safe space when needed. Thank you to my trustee colleagues for their unanimous approval at board for the creation of the center. Thank you to all the staff, past and present, who have worked on this project from the very beginning. Thank you to the Black Student Achievement Community Advisory Committee, past and present members, for their dedication, input, and continued support, which helped make this day come true. Growing up as a student in the Toronto Catholic District School Board, elementary and secondary, I did not see myself reflected in the school's teaching staff or administration. I believed at a young age that's the way it was and would remain. It was not until grade 11 when I had my first Black teacher I felt valued and encouraged to strive for something more. Our students today at the TDSB will not have to wait until their senior years to feel valued and academically capable. My hope is the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement is not only a place for research, but also a place where students and educators from across the district will come and learn from one another. A place where resources about Black culture are kept and shared. It will be a place that will help us dismantle anti-Black racism over time. This is a historic moment in our city and province, and I am proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
The establishment of a Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement is the culmination of years of unwavering advocacy on the part of Black communities, elders, parents and caregivers, students, and staff at the TDSB. On behalf of the Black Student Achievement Community Advisory Committee, I want to express our sincere gratitude to all of you who played a role in bringing forward the vision of the center and holding the board to account for making it happen. School board policy is only as good as its contribution to improved student outcomes. My hope for the center is that it will bring to action what years of data collection, research, and community voice have told us, which is that the current education system has failed Black students and needs to do better. The Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement should be a site of research and curriculum development and must also function as an affinity space for Black students and caregivers to access culturally relevant and responsive resources, system navigational tools, mental health services, and other much needed supports in taking an integrated approach to bridging the equity gap for Black students. There's so much work to be done, but for now, let's just savor this historic moment. Congratulations, TDSB, on the launch of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement.
As members of the TDSB's African Heritage Month Committee, We have hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. My hope is that we increase student voice for Black students and their families.
My hope is that the center creates spaces where Black students can be themselves. I also hope that the center engages in work that is brave, meaningful, and grounded in truth-telling.
My hopes for the Center of Excellence is to have students have a safe place to where they can go to for help, and they can also have someone to help them achieve their goals in post-secondary.
My hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the Center of Excellence for Black Students' Achievement are to create a community of individual and collective sharing that will create stronger bonds, to challenge and dismantle individual and systemic oppression, and for greater heights of the reclamation of Black humanhood near and far.
My dream is that the center is a space of healing for Black students, staff, parents, and families. My hope is that the center engages Black communities in leadership and development.
My open dream for the Center of Excellence for Black Students is that students would have more voices, both students and parents and the staff who are working there.
I hope for the alignment of intergenerational voices and leadership, health and growth as we learn and lead in the greater context of the Toronto District School Board.
We are Ahen Teben, and we are delighted to continue collaborating with the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. We are going to talk to you about what Ahen Teben means to us in connection to the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement.
A, to inspire to make positive changes.
H, honor the youth's lived experiences.
E, engage, empower, excel in excellence.
N, never give up and let all voices be heard.
D, together we can build our community.
B, bridge the gaps for all.
E, empower the community.
And network with individuals at various points of entry.
The center will honor my lived experience.
Parents and guardians will learn what the system looks like, sounds like, and feels like supporting student success.
Ahen Teben is committed to the 21st century movement towards excellence and to mobilize the generations now and those to come.
Collaboratively, we can and we will continue with student
engagement and empowerment in
growth, success stories, and next steps.
In line with the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. Ashe.